Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another amazing topic of conversation. Today, we're touching on a very difficult subject, but before we go into that topic, I want to thank my sponsors, the Health Channel, the Ready Check Go program by Thermo Fisher, and the I Remember bracelet that also teaches about genocide. So, welcome, Rena. I know that you're freezing in New York,
Just a little.
and I really wanted to touch on this very sensitive topic about hate crimes and anti-Semitism. And the reason I wanted to reach out to you is because we all suffered for 11 hours this past week, the kidnapping or the hostage situation in a synagogue. When we were all growing up, we used to go, and I grew up in Colombia, so going to the synagogue, yes, it was the Jews, but it wasn't like that. We never had police presence, we never had anything. And what was more shocking to me was hearing the rabbi on why he felt that his life was safe because he had active shooter training, not only by the ADL, but the FBI, the local police, and a lot of the organizations that help provide that training. And I've had that training, and it's literally very stressful to even think on how you're going to react to something like that. So the rise in anti-Semitism has been exponentially. We also, so that is why I wanted to invite you because you are the next generation. You are the ones that are in campuses all over this country. And so, Rena, welcome. Please tell me a little bit about yourself for those who do not know what is Stand With Us.
Definitely. Well, first, Gladys, I want to thank you for having me and for starting this conversation because we have to be talking about what happened. And when I say we, I don't mean just the Jewish community, I mean the world. We are seeing incidents at this point on a daily basis. I live in New York, I live in Brooklyn. There are Jews everywhere here. So you would think, even here in New York, we would be somewhat safer because we're among a huge community. And yet, even here in New York, we can be targets. My work at Stand With Us is all about training, that training that you mentioned, but training college students. Stand With Us specifically is an organization that operates on an international scale to educate different communities about Israel, to challenge misinformation and disinformation about the Jewish state, and to combat anti-Semitism. We work with middle school, high school, college students, communities, and through my work, I am working to make sure that college students on any campus in any country knows if they're facing anti-Semitism, what they can do about it. And that it's not something that they have to sit and take or sit and accept, that we offer them training to help them push back against that, to amplify their voices and the voices of their communities so that they take a stand against anti-Semitism and invite their campus communities to do the same with them. This work is so important now more than ever.
There was a post that recently was circulating that the attack on the synagogue was not anti-Semitism. And I find that like literally very disturbing. If it was not anti-Semitism, why didn't he go to any other place? Like a library or anywhere, but just target specific a synagogue.
that categorization by the FBI and subsequent conversation that people are having around what happened. I mean, for anyone to remove anti-Semitism from what happened, you're rewriting history. You're altering history. It was a synagogue on Shabbat. At the beginning, during services, there was nothing that's not connected to the Jewish community. And for anyone to assert that something is or isn't anti-Semitic, if you are not Jewish, you do not have a right to say that. Every community that has faced any level of hate, racism, bigotry has the authority to define what that line is. The fact that that same consideration is not awarded to the Jewish community is something really disgusting. And that in and of itself is anti-Semitism, to deny the Jewish community their right to say, this is racism against our community. This is discrimination, a targeted attack against our community. Even on college campuses, students are facing the same battle where they are dealing with class conflict with Shabbat or Jewish holidays, where they're dealing with boycotts of Israeli products, Israeli institutions. Even students themselves who are on campus who have a connection to Israel, whether it's religious, identity-based, value-based, they're being targeted for that connection. And we know that Israel is an integral part to most of the Jewish community's identity and connection and who they are. So even our students on campus are dealing with a similar challenge where they're facing anti-Semitism almost on a daily basis. And when they speak up, detractors are telling them, well, it's not really anti-Semitism.
Like trying to undermine the whole thing.
Exactly. And it's to serve an agenda. It's completely to serve an agenda. And we work with students to help them recognize what anti-Semitism looks like today, how it can impact them, and what legal rights do they have as a student on campus in order to deal with this sort of bigotry, because any other community on campus has that right to the Jewish community.
Legal right. What's the legal right that they do have besides the freedom of speech and freedom of religion, which we all know that we're in this country because of that? So how do you tell them? How do you guide them?
One interesting example that I always like to reference is that just because a professor is in the front of a classroom doesn't mean that they have all the authority in the world to say whatever they want. We find that many times in many irrelevant courses or irrelevant departments, like environmental science or art history, Israel and the conflict will come up. The professor will, if this is a professor who has these opinions, they'll use their class time as a pulpit to share those opinions as if they're fact. And students in the classroom might feel, I know this is wrong, but what right do I have to say anything? This is my professor.
But
They
nobody
fear
says anything. Correct.
Yeah.
And based on the professor, you remind me of something that happened to me in school. And if some of my classmates are listening, I don't know if you remember, but I remember that somebody in the back with a ruler was bothering me for me to laugh. And he tickled me with a ruler and I started to laugh. And the professor said, all right, you Jewish people, the only thing you do is count money.
Wow.
You don't think the class is serious. And I remember that I was so shocked. I could not respond. I just stood up and left the class. I didn't know how to respond to that. So if, for example, this would happen now, how would you teach a student to respond?
There are a number of ways we would support a student in this sort of scenario. The first thing we tell them is document what happened. Take note of it, collect evidence. If something doesn't feel right to you, something you heard, maybe a reading assigned in the classroom, a video that you're watching, a discussion that you're having, be aware of it, take note of it. What we'll do is support the student in going to the professor and having a conversation about what happened. And if the student doesn't feel that that's the right thing to do, that professor won't be open to that, we help them talk to the head of the department. We help them talk to the administration. We help them develop talking points so that they can respond. We empower them with not only the facts on the ground, we also support them in any way they could possibly need to make this change within the classroom.
Oh, that sounds amazing because a lot of people are totally unresponsive. When they caught you off guard, you really don't know what to say.
Exactly. And
How
that's why we
about,
want to offer that training to students before this even happens. We want to make sure they're well informed. They know the claims that people might say against Israel or against the Jewish community, and they're prepared with all the information and confidence they need to respond in those sorts of situations.
I know we've had a lot of conversations toward this topic, but anti-Semitism has been in the rise, not only in 2021, but just at the beginning of this year. Like last year, it was 37% up. So, what do you think is causing all this?
For starters, social media has become a platform for the virus of anti-Semitism and really any other type of bigotry to grow, especially during the conflict in May, June in Israel. We saw that social media was completely inundated and filled with anti-Semitic rhetoric, intentional disinformation, and it was very hard for students to be online. Imagine these platforms are a place for them to escape, for them to interact with friends, connect with people. And these platforms became centers of hate. We also saw very little monitoring of that hate by the companies that run these platforms. These oaths that they take, these policies that they institute to protect their users did not extend to the Jewish community during that time. So social media is a tremendous source of anti-Semitism. And if people are online, they feel very safe typing a comment that's really offensive, something they might not feel as bold to say out loud. So I think social media has certainly exacerbated anti-Semitism and has catalyzed it in a way that we haven't seen before.
And it also spreads really fast.
Really
It's
fast.
immediate. It's a one enter and you're done.
Yeah. So we actually developed a workshop at Stand With Us called Strategies to Counter Online Hate. That's all about teaching students how to navigate these social media platforms. What rights do they have as users when it comes to bullying, reporting misinformation and disinformation, and also through that workshop and other resources that we have, we're helping students push back, to take back the narrative, to put out their stories, their histories, their connections to Israel, their connections to the Jewish community, to basically counter the hate with an outpour of love and unity and strength and pride. And we see a lot of that on social media too. And I have to say, it's exciting. It's exciting. And within this community, we have to do our best to amplify these student voices because they really are the future and they're taking on this battle now.
Talking about the future, I heard this weekend a sentence that really, I don't even know how to explain it, but I feel that it's again starting a race battle. And it was geared towards white supremacists that we all know what happened in Charlottesville. They're chanting about Jewish will not replace us. We want the Jewish blood spill and all that hate crime. But this past week, I heard white people are denied COVID vaccines, and white people are being sent to the back of the lines. Aren't we starting again? This is 2022, trying to educate everyone. And we're hearing this from people at the top. Isn't it this fueling like like a hurricane when it touches hot water, it completely gets a force. I feel that this sentence was giving all the white supremacists more ammunition to protect like the white race. And this country has been made about 100 colors, 100 different cultures. Even in Latin America, we are all different. We come from every different culture, and where one word doesn't mean the same. In the Jewish community, we're also completely different. My husband is Sephardic. I come from an Ashkenazi background, and it's a whole different ballgame, but we all respect each other. And that is a part that it's very worrisome.
100%. One thing that everyone must recognize is that anti-Semitism can come from the left and it can come from the right. This is not a partisan issue, right? It's not a one aisle issue. What's even more horrifying about what you shared is that I know on the campus end, or in general, when it comes to anti-Semitism, Israel is often associated with that claim of white supremacy. You look at, just as you said, you look at the diversity of the Jewish community. I mean, my family's from Aleppo, like from Syria.
My husband's family too, from Syria.
Yeah. Oh, how funny. Maybe we're related.
I bet you 100%. It's not a
Yep.
6-degree separation, but 2.
Exactly. So in this political climate, to categorize anti-Semitism as coming from one side or the other side, and completely putting that blame on the side that you are not on, or maybe the side that you maybe feel you're the opposite of, it's not doing the Jewish community any favors, because it's not recognizing what anti-Semitism is.
What I'm shocked is that nobody's speaking. Nobody's saying anything. Like the ADL and all the organizations, the Jewish Federation, Stand With Us, everybody's trying to get their voice out, but we're still in there.
Mm-hmm. Part of the solution to that is us making sure that we're not just preaching to the choir. We're not just sharing that message to people who we know already believe it and subscribe to it and stand with us. We have to make sure that we are extending beyond our networks, that we are really creating tremendous efforts to connect with different communities, to build relationships and allyships. It's a lot of the work we do at Stand With Us. We have made tremendous inroads with Christian communities across the world, with the Hindu community, all these different communities that can understand the marginalization we face and want to stand with us, and we want to stand with them. We have to see more of those efforts. The more we educate people about anti-Semitism and the extreme consequences that come with that form of hate, the more people will be able to easily identify it, say something about it, and stand against it with us.
How do you get people from other communities, or how do you approach people from other communities and get their feedback or be open to that kind of education?
The first step is to reach out. And we tell our students the same thing on campus. They do similar work connecting their communities with others on campus. It starts with reaching out, not asking someone to do something for you. You know, hey, I have this petition, can you sign it? I have this event, can you show up? That's transactional. That's not what we're looking for. We want to build authentic relationships, deep, deep connections. First thing to do is to reach out. The second thing is to ask them, what do you need? What is your community struggling with? How can I help you? What can we do together? What sort of challenges is your community facing? Let me tell you a bit about the challenges my community is facing. Here's how we can support each other. Here's how we can work together. Here's how we can raise each other up and stand united as a community. It starts with reaching out.
Literally is one by one.
One by one.
So how can we help? How can the community that's listening help you? What can we do?
The fact that you're listening is already huge, and I want to thank you for that, for anyone that's tuning in. It's so important that all of us, even if we're not on campus where this anti-Semitism is growing, that we make sure we're informed, because we can experience anything anywhere. So make sure that we're well informed on what anti-Semitism looks like, what we can do, what action steps can we take. We don't have to just accept anything that happens. Making sure that we are instilling a source or a sense of pride in our connection to our communities and who we are, what our families have been through, what we've been through, and that we instill that pride in our children and our grandchildren so that they're carrying it with them wherever they go. I think that's huge. And in terms of Stand With Us, we have ample campaigns and action alerts, letter writing campaigns, things that you can do to help us have the impact we want. But we need help. We need your help. We need people to invest in our work to allow us to continue reaching hearts and minds, educating people, empowering people. That's the sort of support that we really can use, because we don't just want to continue our work, we want to expand our efforts always.
So where can they find you?
www.standwithus.com. That website will take you anywhere you need to go.
And get all the points that we need, because I'm gonna finish with another story that also shocked me, and I think I will never forget it. Many years ago in Colombia, I was working at a political campaign. I don't know if I told this story before, but we were packing the votes, the old-fashioned votes. I don't think you even remember that there were little papers that we used to put. And I volunteered, and it was like 2 or 3 weeks, the same 10 people. So we sat there for 3 hours for 2 weeks, just putting little votes, and we talked about everything. And there was this guy that I remember, we talked about politics, we talked about the country, the whole thing. And there was this guy, and one day he said, "Oh, what's your last name?" And I said, "Okay, Miss Rai." And he said, "Oh, you're Jewish." And I remember how proud I was, and I said, "Yes." But I felt, when you touched on being proud, I felt that yes, I was proud. And his answer was, "Oh, so if you're here, Hitler didn't do his job well."
Wow.
I lost it. I literally, at that point, lost it. I started screaming. They had to call the police. And Instinctively, I did what you just said. I did call the consulate at that time, the Israeli consulate, and reported it. And they came back to me saying that he was on a watch list, but they didn't know his name. They didn't know where to find him. So he was like one of those people that they're looking for and they don't know where they are. And thanks to that, he surfaced. So they said that if I could go on a short vacation
Wow.
until this thing calmed down. But for for I don't know how long, I used to have dreams about that. So
How could you
now
not? That's horrifying.
I
I'm so
remember,
happy you did say something. And
but at that point, I freaked out. I was like, how could you? You were sitting with me talking for 2 weeks about everything, and now it's like, what have we learned?
mhm,
Like, we are all the same. It doesn't matter if you believe in Allah, if you believe in Jesus Christ, if you believe in any of the other gods, we are all the same. We respect each other. We can agree to disagree.
100%. We actually have we have a big conference coming up this Sunday, the Stand With Us International Conference, Israel in Focus. And one of the speakers that we are hosting is TM Garrett. TM Garrett is a former KKK member, former white supremacist, and he now talks about how toxic and hate-filled these movements are, and does all this important work to connect people, to see the humanity in people. He was someone that at the time, some people might have said, don't even bother engaging with him. If he's part of the KKK, how are you getting through to him?
Those are the people that you need to engage and you need to connect. Like the terrorist in the
So there's hope
synagogue.
for everyone. I think that that's so important, that no one is a lost cause. Doesn't mean you need to put yourself in harm's way to engage them. That's not what we want. We want everyone to be safe, of course. But if you have that opportunity, you could completely change someone's perspective, their entire belief system, with just being you. And that's amazing. It's very powerful to know that.
One of the things that really stuck in my mind was when the terrorist last weekend in the synagogue, when he knocked on the door, he said, they're good people. They let me in. Even the rabbi gave him a tea.
Right.
And so it's like a different perspective on what are we supposed to look like. Are we this really horrible people that nobody even wants to get to know us? So how do people know about the conference? Do you need people to attend? Can we help you? Please.
Yes, yes. Anyone who's listening can definitely attend the website for the conference. You can also find it on our webpage, but I'll just tell you it's standwithus.com/SWUCONF 22. So SWUCONF 22. SWU Conference 22. That'll get you there. But also after the conference, we're going to be uploading a lot of the content. So if you're unable to make it this Sunday, you'll be able to tune in at any other time you want to engage with the content that we're putting together.
Rena, it has been really a pleasure.
Thank
And,
you so much, Gladys. Thank you for having me.
and I'm so happy to know that your organization is actually educating the people so that we cannot become another statistic and get the anti-Semitism down.
100%. Israel is a living testament to the resilience and the tenacity of the Jewish people. When we think about the anti-Semitism that we've faced historically, the anti-Semitism that we faced recently, we have to remember and be proud of the fact that the Jewish people are not only committed to surviving, but they are committed to thriving. And despite everything we're facing as a community, I feel hopeful knowing that the students we're working with are going to lead the future of this community in an incredible way. I'm so proud of the work that I get to do. And even on the bad days when we're dealing with incidents, I know that there's a brighter tomorrow because of staying with us.
No, I totally agree with you. 100%, and happy that you guys are here. And anybody who's listening, please go to their website, stand with us, and above all, stay safe. And until next week, everyone, thank you.